What's going on, guys? Your boy Fluff here. Today we're bringing you an updated guide for the Blood Nova Necromancer. In Season 12, this thing is an AoE powerhouse, and we found some solutions to make it really strong for single target as well. And I think you guys are really going to like it. This thing will be amazing for bounties, for T13, and those lower level speed GRs. So, without further ado, let's get into the Blood Nova Necro. So, just like with all our guides, we're going to start with what we're juicing up here. We're going to juice up Death Nova with Blood Nova. Amazing skill, crazy AoE potential, especially with the introduction of some new changes in 2.6.1. This thing is amazing for the AoE. The one way we're juicing up is with the trag'oul 6-piece, which says your life spending abilities deal 3,300% increased damage, and your healing from skills is increased by 100%. The Death Nova, as you can see here with Blood Nova, will make it cost 10% health, which makes it a life spending ability. That's how trag'oul works. We're also going to be using Scythe of the Cycle, which, as you guys can see, your secondary skills deal 400% additional damage while bone armor is active, but reduce the remaining duration of bone armor by 4 seconds. Now, this is a question I get literally all the time. You know, why I'm not using Scythe of the Cycle in some of the other builds, because people think that 400% additional damage just applies to everything. But no, guys, it says secondary skills. And so if you go to the Necro skill tree here, these are the only 3 skills that are under the secondary tab. And so that's exactly what it means when it says secondary skills. So only Death Nova, only Skeletal Mage, only Bone Spear will be buffed by Scythe of the Cycle. But again, that gives us 400% additional damage because we are using bone armor. In the cube, we are using the new and improved Blood-Tide Blade. This thing got super juiced up in 2.6.1. Death Nova now deals 100% increased damage for every enemy within 25 yards. That is pretty huge, guys. 25 yards is a pretty big radius, and 100% per enemy. That's crazy. You know, there's times that you could be surrounded by 10 enemies, 15 enemies, and just Blood Nova just one-shots everything. We're also using the Convention of Elements, which says gain 200% increased damage to a single element for 4 seconds. And as you guys know, the Necro has 3 elements: cold, physical, and poison, which is really good. A lot of the other classes have, 4 elements to rotate through, so they lose effectiveness of COE, whereas the Necro has very, very good effectiveness with COE. When this thing rolls to physical, which is our primary damage type, as it does now, you are doing crazy damage. We're also using Bane the Powerful, gain 20% increased flat damage, plus 15% increase versus elites, and of course, Bane the Trapped, which gives us, a flat damage buff if they're under the effects of control impairing effects, which, as you guys know, the Bane the Trap its secondary effect will proc its primary effect, and we are kind of a melee character here, so this is very good. Everything that gets hit from our Blood Nova will basically be snared. And of course, what Necro build would be complete without the Crispin Sentence? We get 100% increased damage against slowed enemies, and triple that versus enemies afflicted by any other control impairing effect. And so we're going to be using bone armor to proc a stun on them on demand to get that triple bonus, and we're going to have Land the Dead up on demand when we want it, and that will also proc Crispin Sentence. And so that's kind of how we're dealing crazy amounts of AoE damage. Blood Nova juiced up with all these other abilities. Blood Nova with Blood-Tide Blade is a very AoE centric ability, but when it comes to Rift Guardians, Juggernauts, Goblins, the damage really suffers in this build, like a lot. So I didn't really feel comfortable leaving the build as it was, because 90% of risks you'd feel probably fine in normal risks, but when you run into Juggernauts, when you run into Goblins, you're going to feel significantly underpowered, and that's not what we want. So this time around, we made Blood Nova better out of the box. Because of a lot of the changes in 2.6.1, this was possible. So now for our single target damage, or to finish off, an elite pack, or to chase down a pesky Goblin, we are going to be using the Blood Lance. And this is actually kind of cool, because Blood Lance isn't really used in a lot of T13, GR70 speed setups. It's mostly just for pushing. I wouldn't even really call this like a Blood Nova build. It's kind of like the new Bloodmancer, but it's mostly Blood Nova. Again, we're going to be using Corpse Lance with Blood Lance. Again, you can see it costs 2% health per corpse. So guess what, guys? That makes it a life-spending ability and will proc the 6-piece trag'ouls set, giving it a 3,300% damage multiplier. We're also going to use that in conjunction with the Corpse Whisper Pauldrons, which says corpse lance damage is increased by up to 30% for 3 seconds when you consume a corpse, max 20 stacks. And as you guys can see in the clearing above, we don't cast corpse lance all that often, mostly just to finish off a single target, or we always save, Land of the Dead plus corpse lance for the RG or for juggernauts. But this effect is going to be up 100% of the time because we're running Devour. As you guys can see, the effect says for 3 seconds when you consume a corpse. So that applies with Devour. That doesn't have to apply with corpses consumed for corpse lance. Devour consumes corpses, which will proc this, 20 stacks being up 100% of the time. So anytime you need to use that corpse lance, it's going to be at its maximum power on demand. Now, how else does this build kind of get juiced up? The movement speed on this guy is insane. We are using Blood Rush. We don't have to pick a rune because, again, with trag'ouls, we get Blood Rush gains the effect of every rune for the 2-piece. That means we get Potency, which is more armor. We get healing per enemy we pass through. We get Molting, which will leave a corpse on the ground, which we can then consume. It doesn't cost health to use, which is nice. And we get double charges. So the movement you're getting here is really, really nice. And we're using that in conjunction with the new Steward's Grease, which says you gain 100% increased movement speed for 10 seconds after using Blood Rush. So we can Blood Rush basically all the time because we are a high CDR build here. Plus we get the Steward's Grease added effect, so we get crazy fast movement speed, which is just insane. Plus we're using Fueled by Death, which, as you guys know, is fixed in 2.6.1. So basically every single time we consume a corpse, which we're non-stop consuming corpses, guys, we get 3% movement speed for 5 seconds, and it stacks up to 10 times. So that's another 30% in movement speed, which is going to make this exceptionally good for things like bounties, for things like, T13 rifts, and for doing those lower level speed rifts early in the season. This is really strong. We are using, again, bone armor with dislocation. It gives us great mitigation. It gives us an on-demand proc of Crispin Sentence, which is fantastic, and it's required to use for Scythe of the Cycle. We have to keep bone armor up all the time to get the full damage from Scythe of the Cycle. So make sure you don't let that bone armor drop. We're using Devour with Cannibalize, which says you consume corpses within 60 yards to restore 10 essence per corpse, which is great. And then with this Cannibalize rune, we get each corpse consumed also restores 3% health. And because of trag'oul 6-piece, your healing from skills is increased by 100%. So we actually get 6% per corpse, which is crazy healing. Plus, because of 4-piece trag'oul, we get double our health pool, because it says while at full life, your healing from skills is added to your maximum life for 45 seconds, up to 100% more. And our health pool is already really insane. So we're at 900k health, and when this effect is up, we're at 1.8 million health. Lastly, we're using Land of the Dead, and I know a lot of you guys are gonna be like, great, another Land of the Dead build. Again, guys, I didn't design the class. I'm just trying to come out with the best builds for you guys. But this is really, really strong in this setup as well. Not only will it proc, triple bonus damage on Crispin Sentence, this will let us basically take out Juggernauts, take out the RG in conjunction with your Corpse Lance, because with Land of the Dead up, you don't need a corpse to fire Corpse Lance. And we're basically consuming all the corpses on the screen because we're numlocking Devour. But while Land of the Dead is up, even though we're numlocking Devour, we still get to spam Corpse Lance. Land of the Dead with Corpse Lance is how you're dealing with those Juggernauts, how you're dealing with the RG. Now, other reason Land of the Dead is really good is because sometimes on this build, you will run low on essence. Maybe you don't get the density that you need to keep up, the essence cost of Death Nova. Sometimes you can get really crap density in rifts. If you're getting low on essence and you're worried that you might not be able to get that back up, all you got to do is pop Land of the Dead, and you'll start consuming corpses that aren't even there, and you'll get your essence back up to full, no problem. It's also a really nice defensive cooldown. Say you're getting surrounded by enemies, your health pool is really low, pop Land of the Dead, everything gets frozen, and you're healing like crazy because of you're consuming corpses that aren't there. So you're getting 6%, health per corpse consumed, which is just juicing you up like crazy fast. I also like to use the bottomless potion of amplification in this setup because it basically increases your healing from all sources by 25%. Other pieces here, we're wearing Vigilant Belt to get more cooldown reduction. More cooldown reduction helps us bring down the cooldown of Land of the Dead. Cooldown of Blood Rush to get more mobility, more casts of Bone Armor for this on-demand proc of Crispin Sentence, which brings us into our third gem. We're using Gogok of Swiftness. More attack speed is kind of nice. Dodge doesn't really do anything for the Necro, but you gain 1% cooldown reduction per stack, so you'll get 15% cooldown reduction. You don't have to run Gogok here. You can, run Esoteric, you can run Gizzard. The offhand, we're basically just using a stat stick. It could be Lost Time, it could be Bone Ringer, it could be Ledger's Disdain. You know, anything that's going to give you the stats that you want. You could even use a shield if you want. You will lose damage, but we get that question all the time. Can I use a shield? Sure. You will just lose damage. And then for the necklace slot, we are wearing Wisdom of Kalan. This is actually really nice in this build because we don't have a ring slot to give up to run something like Unity. So we're using Wisdom of Kalan here in the neck slot to gain some additional toughness that we very much need, which basically just increases the maximum stacks of bone armor by 5, which will just give us that much more mitigation on bone armor. Really, really nice. Makes you quite tanky. The last item we didn't really talk about, but we're using Ring of Royal Grandeur in the cube. This is a must because we are wearing Corpse Whisper Pauldrons and Steward's Grieved is cube. Now you can switch those two, and you'll probably want to because Steward's Grieved is going to be a lot easier to roll well. For passives, again, Fueled by Death, more movement speed, we already talked about. So good. Standalone, no pets in this setup, so we get 100% additional armor. Amazing for mitigation. Final Service is really nice. We have no pets in this build, so Final Service is quite good. Basically just saves us from death. Losing stacks for reflection can cost you time in this game, so having this is really nice. And lastly, we're using Blood as Power. You know, we're spending our life pool like non-stop, but this effect is going to be up a lot. You know, Death Nova costs 10% of our life, so like every 10 Death Novas, we lose 100% of our life, which will bring down our cooldowns by 20%. So Blood as Power is really, really strong in Blood Nova. Other options, you know, you could drop Final Service for Blood. I don't really like Blood for Blood. I don't think it's necessary or dependable. And you pretty much have to run Blood for Blood with Life from Death, and that's 2 passes we're kind of giving up. So I don't really like either of them. So I kind of stand by these being the best 4. Alright, so we've talked about your gear, we've talked about your legendary gems, we've talked about your passive, we've talked about your skills. Let's just do a quick rundown of the stat priority. Again, this is a high CDR build. Just like basically every Necro build we make. CDR is just so good in this game. You want CDR on gloves, shoulders, diamond in the helmet. You're going to wear a vigilant belt for more cooldown reduction. You're getting a cooldown reduction on your side of the cycle and your offhand. You want cooldown reduction on both rings. And the dream will be that we could get it on a Wisdom of Kalan, but that's simply not possible because of how terrible Wisdom of Kalan rolls. If you guys don't know, this is a really, really hard item to get to roll well because it has a base attack speed roll built into the item. So for example, on this Wisdom of Kalan, you know, it rolled with int, crit chance, socket, and attack speed, and we were lucky enough to be able to roll off attack speed for crit damage to make it basically a normal necklace. And that's why Wisdom of Kalan is just so hard to roll well. But gloves, int, crit damage, crit chance, cooldown reduction is what you're after. And a quick caveat, you know, physical and pickup radius are always going to be amazing, especially for speed builds on your secondary stats. For shoulders, you know, either Corpse Whisper Pauldrons or trag'ouls, depending on if you have Steward's Greaves cubed or not. But we're going to want int, vite, cooldown reduction, corpse lance damage, or even life pool. You know, more life means more toughness. And you're not using corpse lance so much that it's amazing, but it's nice. Helmet, int, vite, crit chance with socket, chest, invite, life. You could go corpse lance here, but again, we don't use it a ton, so I prefer life. Belt, invite, life with cooldown reduction. Pants, invite, armor, and 2 sockets. Boots, invite, armor, and death nova damage. Death nova damage, important roll there. The weapon, damage roll, intelligence, cooldown reduction, and preferably damage here. Attack speed isn't super beneficial with Death Nova, but you know, this is by far and away the best side of the cycle we had. Offhand, int, vite, crit chance, cooldown reduction. Bracers, physical, int, vite, crit chance. On the COE, we want the dream roll, which is crit damage, crit chance, cooldown reduction, socket with the highest possible damage roll. Crispin, again, one of those items that rolls attack speed, so you can't get the dream roll, unfortunately. But something with crit damage, cooldown reduction, and a socket, those are your main 3. And then again, necklace, Wisdom of Kalan, you know, crit damage, crit chance, socket are the main 3 stats. Other than that, it's gonna have to be attack speed or intelligence. So of those 2, you would want intelligence. Another quick note, you know, a lot of people love running Avarice Band with Boon of the Hoarder for T13, especially in seasons to, you know, juice up that gold. You can empower every rift. So all you need to do to make this, you know, a T13 setup that uses Boon is you put on Gold Wrap instead of the Vigilant Belt, and you throw on an Avarice Band over your COE with Boon of the Hoarder. And so you drop COE and Goguk. And then you're basically ready to go for T13. And this is actually one of the few builds on T13 that I love the Boon of the Hoarder on because everything dies. Every mob on the screen dies. So you're going to have that Avarice buff plus the Boon of the Hoarder buff up like 100% of the time. But that's basically going to do it for the build. Really, really good at T13. Really, really good at bounties. And really fast at those lower level GRs. Not to mention a lot of fun to play. If you guys have any more questions, please ask them in the comment section below. And we will get to them as soon as we can. As always, big shout out to all my supporters on Twitch. We love you guys. You make the dream possible. And as always, like, subscribe, come over to Twitch, ask your questions. We love you guys. Peace out.
Guardian is here.